Before, everybody sort of thought, well, Putin will never let Crimea go. But now I think people are saying to themselves, first of all, it's possible. The big picture is Ukraine is going to win.
Why doesn't the West recognize that it's a world war?
I think some people in the West do think of it like that.
Boris, I'm really happy to have you here in Kyiv.
It's a great honor.
And let me start directly from the substance.
Yes.
It's not a secret now that in early 2022, most of European and world leaders were rather sure that Ukraine will fall. Not a secret. And I remember you were among the first who visited Kyiv in spring,
Yes.
in early April. By that time, did you understand that Ukraine is prevailing?
Yes, and that was the whole point, because Ukraine had already been so incredibly successful in kicking the Russians out of the whole Kyiv area. I think it'd be fair to say that before the war, so when you had 115 Russian battalion tactical groups on the border, and our intelligence services could hear what they were saying, and we could all see the preparations they were making, the prognosis was incredibly gloomy. And we thought that the weight of forces, the balance of forces, was so much in Russia's favor that they would win very fast. That was the advice I was being given by the defense intelligence, and everybody was getting the same advice. I didn't believe it, because I'd been to Kyiv a couple of times, and I'd talked to Ukrainians.
By now, we see that the situation has completely changed, and the West already believes that Ukraine will win, and even a return of Crimea is set in stone by different statements and documents adopted by Western partners. What was a game changer? What was a time of shift?
The most important thing has been the heroism of the Ukrainian armed forces and the conviction of the Ukrainian people. And the West has responded to that. And so it was the Battle of Kyiv, in Kharkiv, in Kherson, the expulsion of Putin's forces from so much of the territory that he occupied, and a sense that this is right. Nobody can doubt that the Ukrainians are in the right.
Even after Kherson and Kharkiv, even in late 2022, I remember foreign leaders very cautiously mentioning Crimea. Now it has changed.
Let me give you a reason for that, I think. I think basically because everybody understands that following the events of 23, it's very difficult to advance against very dug-in Russian positions, okay. But the big picture is Ukraine is going to win, because we will continue to support Ukraine until Ukraine wins. And ultimately, Western industrial strength, yes, it's slow manufacturing the shells now, and I wish it could be faster. I wish more equipment could get to Ukraine faster. But it will come. And when it comes, when there are more long-range shells, more HIMARS, more ATACMS, more Storm Shadow, more stuff to use, then I think Crimea is a very interesting prospect, because I think before everybody sort of thought, well, Putin will never let Crimea go. This is not worth even trying. Let's try and
His treasure.
Yes, correct. Let's try and help Ukraine to recapture the land bridge. But now I think people are saying to themselves, first of all, it's possible to take back Crimea. Secondly, Putin is very vulnerable in Crimea, and if you look at the infrastructure, the logistics, there's a big opportunity there. So I think there's been a change in the way people think about Crimea.
Ukrainian people, we believe in our victory, but we don't, sometimes some people do not see how could it happen. Russia is a huge country, and Putin has prepared for the war for decades.
But look at what you Ukrainians have already achieved. Look at what you Ukrainians have already done. You've already effectively destroyed 2 Russian armies. According to the CIA director, Bill Burns, you've destroyed or killed or injured 315,000 Russian soldiers, troops, thousands of battle tanks. You've recaptured more than half of the territory that Putin initially occupied. And fundamentally, it's clear to the world that Ukrainians believe in their country. And that's why you're going to win.
Do you know Timothy Snyder, a historian?
I've read a couple of his books.
And recently at Pinchuk Foundation-Ukrainian launch in Munich, he said that now we are facing a new type of world war. Because there are different conflicts in different parts of the world, and also despite it is not a world war as we used to see, these conflicts are interconnected. They are created by this axis of evil.
This is a very strange war in which the people of only one country are doing the fighting. This is a war with international implications, not just for Europe and North America, but for Asia. It's in many ways a world war.
I think there's a lot of truth in that. I think that it's no accident that Putin is now getting his shells from North Korea, a completely outlaw regime. It's no accident that he's getting drones from Iran.
Why doesn't the West recognize that it's a world war?
I think some people in the West do think of it like that. I think it's not a world war in the sense of the 1914 to 18, 1939 to 45 world wars with mass mobilization of people in the West. That's not what's happening. But it's a big power struggle. The heroism of Ukraine is really the tip of the spear, because if Ukraine were to fall to Putin, it would be a disaster for the whole world.
And it would be a loss for the West.
It would. But personally, that's not the only reason for supporting Ukraine. The reason for supporting Ukraine is because this is a wonderful, independent country and should not be destroyed by Putin. So there are geostrategic reasons for the West's interest, but there's also, frankly, a moral. The moral interest is, for me, very, very important.
Will Putin attack NATO countries?
Well, I think he might. I think you can't rule that out. I didn't like at all what he was saying about Poland in his ghastly interview. Did you see his interview with the American guy? Yeah, I didn't like that. I think that he could try something, and he will be more likely to try that if he succeeds in Ukraine. He mustn't succeed. He must fail.
What we also see that in some Western countries, including in the US, we see processes that, a bit contrary to what we expect, to what you say. There is a frustration. There is Donald Trump who's winning. Should we worry about that?
Don't forget, Trump, of course it's right to worry about the United States of America. The United States of America is the arsenal of democracy. We depend on the United States of America. The United States of America is the biggest funder of NATO. In the United States of America's defense spending is massive. We need that $60 billion from the House of Representatives to go through. But I am not as pessimistic as some people about this. I don't think any president of the United States of America can allow Putin to win in Ukraine. I just don't see how it's possible. And if you look at the history, so you talk about Donald Trump, look at the history. He Actually, he was the first American president to give serious weaponry to Ukraine, the javelins, which were very important in the battle for Kyiv. I think back to, people say he's soft on Putin, right? Well, actually, when I was foreign secretary of the UK, I remember we had a terrible business when Putin murdered a guy, or tried to murder.
In Salisbury.
Salisbury poisonings. I mean, actually, a member of the public was killed, but not the people Putin was after. And to everybody's surprise, Trump came through with the biggest expulsion of Russian diplomats. I mean, 60 Russian diplomats he expelled, way more than we'd been expecting. So what I'm saying is, I think American domestic politics are complicated. I think in the run-up to the election, there will be lots of people saying all sorts of things. But when it comes to it, fundamentally, the interests of the United States of America are in supporting Ukraine, in supporting democracy, in preventing aggression. That's for all sorts of reasons, which you and I know very well. But I think the interests of Donald Trump are in not being seen to be defeated by Putin.
And what about negotiations that he's pushing on?
Who?
Donald Trump has said that he is supporting negotiations between him as a president and Putin.
I'm not against negotiations if they can achieve anything. But I remember very well the negotiations over with Kim Jong-un. Do you remember Donald Trump's negotiations with North Korea? I mean,
but behind Ukrainians.
But I don't think that in the end it will make any difference. So the key people are the Ukrainians. And it's not for me to say what Ukraine should do. I can't be more Ukrainian than the Ukrainians. If Ukraine wants to negotiate, if the president of Ukraine, President Zelensky, wants to negotiate, that's a matter for them. Personally, I don't see what the deal is. Putin wants to subjugate Ukraine. He wants to destroy Ukraine as a state. I don't see what the negotiation is. But if Ukrainians want to negotiate, then that is a matter for them. Until that time, the UK, the West, if I have anything to do with it, will support Ukraine for as long as it takes, and we should be giving more, and we should be giving it faster.
And the last question about the UK. By now, the UK is probably the most vivid supporter of Ukraine. We have deep relations. We have high expectations on our future with the new agreement, with the agreement that you have signed with President Zelensky. But maybe the most outstanding issue we have is a visa policy. We are still treated as a third world country.
Really, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, but could we?
You want to come to London? You want a visa?
Yeah. So
I wish I could help. I can't promise. This is a Home Office matter, but generally, I think that we should, as part of our friendship, we should make sure that it's relatively simple for people to come and go.
So let's hope that it will happen.
Yes, I mean genuinely, are you finding it difficult?
Really?
Really?
So I simply cannot travel, and I think
really?
I think that with this number of Ukrainians in the UK, it's just a nonsense what we have now with visa policy.
Right, I didn't know that. Okay, I'm sorry, but I'll find out about that.
Looking forward to your new leadership in the UK and visa waiver.
I'll try and find out about a visa waiver system. It is a complicated issue, but we've benefited massively from having lots of wonderful Ukrainians come to the UK.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for supporting Ukraine.